Okay, great. So anyway, welcome. I'm just going to talk a little bit about what we see at Frost. I've been at Frost for 30 years. I've been in the fraud world for about 18. So I've been doing this for a long time, but I obviously have seen many types of fraud, seen people that, you know, don't believe it's fraud and they continue on until later and they've lost everything they possibly could. And so unfortunately, that's the world we live in, and it continues to get even more and more and more hard to talk to people about fraud or to convince them that they're being defrauded. And it's just simply because the fraudsters are so good at talking to people and they tell them up front, the bank just wants to keep your money. The bank is trying to do this. It's always, you know, the bank. And so it's a really hard thing to combat going now forward. It's just getting harder and harder. But I'll just tell you a little bit about what we're seeing. And I'll tell you, obviously, the skims that you guys see even where you work a lot. So all the scams that you've heard of are still out there. And I'm sure if I asked you to raise your hand, would you say, yes, I know someone that's been a victim of fraud, whatever kind of fraud, not necessarily elder fraud, but you would probably, there's no one out here that wouldn't say, yes, I have been a victim. I know someone, my family, one of my family members, somebody's been a victim. We all have. And if you think probably most of us don't have information that's sold out there on the dark web, trust me, everybody has some bit of information. And I'm talking about us as people, and I'm talking about those businesses. So like the other day, a detective sent me a thing. He goes, is this one of your checks? I found it on the dark web. They're trying to sell it. They had the account number marked out, but they're trying to sell that check information. And so even just something you're thinking, really? That's all the thing that goes on. But for our elder clients, they get comfortable talking to someone. And by the way, these fraudsters are so patient. They will talk to them for months and months until they finally ask them or give them the sob story about whatever it is that they need money for, or I can help you make money if all you need to do is this. So they're very convincing. And so, of course, they get caught up in that web, if you will. So let's talk about what we can talk about today. We can talk about the scams that are going on, some new ones that maybe you're not aware of, how they're at risk, not just at risk financially, but even mentally once they've lost every single thing and they don't have anybody to turn to. A lot of times they end up losing family members. And family members won't even talk to them because they know and they've tried to help them. So we'll talk about all of that, and we'll talk about how to report those, and are you reporting them? We do know that probably about a little over a half probably are never reported. And a lot of times that's just simply because even though, like me, I call people and say, oh my gosh, and some of them are elder, right? And I said, well, you should file an identity theft report at ftc.gov. And they go, well, I don't really get on the computer. So you know those don't go reported because that's just not, they don't know how. Even though I tell them where to go, they don't know how to do that. And they'll tell you, I don't do any of that. I only, if I get on the computer at all, it's just to look something up. They don't really know how to use a computer, if you will. So what are those scams, or what's going on out there? Well, we know per statistics at FTC of what they know of what's been reported, that about 1 in 5 individuals in the United States is 60 and over. And that's when we're talking about elder scams, which I hate doing that. I'm like, wait, what? Like, I'm going, but it is. It's 60 and over is considered elder for this purposes. 1 in 20 have had financial mistreatment, meaning somebody in the family, a caregiver, anybody like that. 1 in 44 are not even only reported to law enforcement. So even if they report it to FTC and FTC says on there, you might want to consider filing a theft report, a lot of times they don't do that. And then, of course, a lot of them just they have to reach out to other sources in order to be able to even continue living. A lot of them end up losing their homes. I've seen it happen myself. So unfortunately, that's what we kind of deal with in the world. But let's talk about why. Why seniors? Well, once seniors get involved in a situation, and I've dealt with so many of the romance scams, and let me tell you what's going on now. We want to talk about romance scams as being a really big deal, right? Actually, now it's kind of a lesser. Now we're finding people just befriending folks and saying, you know, we have, and they find similarities like, oh, I see you just lost your husband, or I see, and they're just befriending. And so what they're doing is, you know, they'll talk to them, talk to them, talk to them. And remember, it's a lot of times because of the loneliness, if you will. But then they'll say, hey, I've got this great, I just invested. And, you know, we've gone through a lot of the same things. And so I thought you might be interested in the same investment. So why don't you send me the funds? I've already made this much money on it. But see, they think they're talking to a good friend. So now that's what I'm seeing, so much more of that. And guess where all that money's going? Bitcoin. And so I had this 80-year-old lady. And if I asked my mother, who is 81, what do you know about Bitcoin? Well, first of all, she wouldn't even have a clue what I'm talking about. But now they're asking them to take these funds and deposit it in one of those Bitcoin ATMs. And so obviously, once you do that, you cannot get that back. And so I've seen so much of it lately. So I just kind of wanted to pass that on. It's not so much anymore that I'm getting a lot of the romance scams. It's literally just to befriend and then wanting them to help them and make an investment. So it's very interesting how the cases have kind of started to do some changes. So I'm not going to read these to you guys, but typically they're, you know, obviously we all know this, they're just strangers preying on other people. And let me help you out. Most of the time they are, and I say most of the time, a lot of the times they're not from our country. So it's very difficult for law enforcement, even once it is reported, to actually find out who they've been talking to. And especially if they're using Bitcoin. So, because, you know, Bitcoin, and not that they can't, but it takes years to be able to track down Bitcoin. And that's if they want to stick with it. It's got to be a large dollar amount before they're probably going to do that. So that's why we end up having situations where people get so frustrated because law enforcement doesn't seem to help, right? Well, it's not that they're not, that there's not an avenue for them to be able to help. And you guys, I've reached out to family members, you know, maybe they've had a family member on the account. And so one gentleman we had reached out to, so his dad kept sending money, and we had put a stop to it. And he was getting angry. Well, I noticed that he had a joint signer, or a POD maybe, and it was his son. His son lived in another city, probably about 3 hours away, I think. And he said, do not call me again. We have been going through this now for almost a year, and he will not stop. And I was like, so it's really hard because even the family member's frustrated. The family member's so frustrated with his own parent because the parent won't even believe their children. So you can imagine how they're not going to believe us here at the bank, right? And so it's just a hard situation for us to manage. And then of course, we report it to APS as soon as we can. But, you know, a lot of times APS has their hands tied if somebody says, I want to send this money. So it's kind of a hard catch-22, even though we all know what's going on, but they just don't want to see it. They feel comfortable with whomever they've been talking to because it's been going on for quite some time. So caregivers, we're not seeing as much here at the banking world as we used to. And I'm sure Adult Protective Services sees it quite a bit more than we do, but used to, we saw it quite often where they'd come in and they'd have these persons withdraw funds, they'd be there, they'd be sitting there with them. Well, we're not seeing as much of that anymore. And again, family members, most of the time when I'm reaching out to family members, they want to help, but it's getting to more and more to where they're losing that closeness with their family over these situations. And so it's kind of getting disheartening, if you will, or what we see on our side. And you know, it's funny because we'll say, we're not going to do this for you anymore. We're not going to send any more money. We're not going to let you withdraw any of these funds. And they won't close their account because we've told them we're not going to do it. And so we lose customers over this. And so we just had one the other day, and I reached out to him personally, but he just was not. He was fine. He had been banking here as well. I've enjoyed banking at Frost. He had been banking here, you guys, over 35 years, and he was okay to close that account. It's so sad. Like, you get really, I mean, he's been our customer for a long time. So I'm just saying they're getting better and better at convincing these folks that they truly have it in for their best interest. And so they're sending these monies. And this guy had already sent over $218,000. And so he had taken money out of Charles Schwab and deposited it here, and then was trying to withdraw those funds. And then a lot of them, he was doing wires. We were stopping that. Then he wanted to purchase a cashier's check, and then he wanted cash. So I'm sure to take to an ATM. But anyway, it's just one of those things, and we try to combat it every day. A lot of people are out there advocating for our seniors, and all we can do is educate parents or children to educate their parents. And so yesterday I was in Victoria, and a lady, this just happened to her last week, her mom, she goes, and even though my mom is super savvy, my mother is not, she's not like an 80-year-old that doesn't go anywhere, done anything. And she too, she goes, now, of course, I didn't know about it till after the fact to tell my mom, oh my gosh, mom, but $20,000. And, you know, that doesn't sound like a lot, but you guys, that's a lot of money. I mean, for me, $10 is a lot, you know, but I'm just $20,000, and it just happened to her this past week. And so she was sharing that story about her mom. And I'm sure each one of you might have a story to share as well. And so if you do, you know, afterwards, feel free to, because it becomes real to people when they hear, hey, it happened. I know her. It actually happened to her. But, you know, I was telling you guys, those scammers hit. I'm going to tell you another one we're very frustrated with, in all of the banking industry as a whole. When I talk to other bankers, you know, is the phone calls from your bank. And it has, and I don't know if you can see my phone, but on the phone, when you have that caller ID, and they have it programmed in, it says Frost Bank. I already got one this morning. And we get them all day, every day, where the customer says, I thought somebody was posing as Frost Bank. They told me my card was had been used in Nebraska. And of course I told them it had, and they said, well, just give me your PIN and I can go ahead and stop that transaction for you. So they do. And again, you guys, you see the number on your screen and you believe in your heart that it's Frost Bank, right? Or Chase Bank or Bank of America or whomever, because guess what I have on my phone? And I would love to show it to you guys. And do not defraud people. Stop it. I know what y'all are all out there thinking. But I will tell you, it's called, and I'm going to show it to you. It's a little app, and it's called Spoof Card. On Spoof Card, now there's a fee, but if I'm going to get $200,000 and $300,000, and remember, they're working in volumes. So even though they may only get 5,000 from you or 5,000, they're working in volumes. But on this little phone and on this app, and by the way, you guys, this is a legitimate app that I downloaded from the App Store. And how I found out about it was from a police officer. But so let me tell you how it works. You can change. So I can pretend I'm calling from Lynn Scott's phone. I could put Lynn Scott's phone number in here, and I could call Dana, and Dana's going to go, oh, hey, Lynn, because she thinks it's Lynn, and it's not. And so, but I can change my voice from a male to a female. I can add background noise if I want to, so it sounds like I'm calling from a call center. And so that's what's going on. So you guys have probably, and remember, we're a Texas-only bank. So we probably have about 10 per day. And so if you average that per week or whatever, and again, that's of the ones that we've taken losses. A lot of customers are savvy enough, they hang up and they call Frost back. These are losses. These are because they're giving them their PIN, and they're on frostbank.com at the same time they're giving them that PIN, and they're sending money out right away. So they're Zelling it out or Cash Apping it out. Most of the time it's Zelle. So that's what we're dealing with. And it's gotten to where it's really difficult because, again, they believe it's Frostbank. So I had a customer, this is fun, you guys. I had a customer, she called our HR, and HR put her through to me. She goes, hey, I just want you to know I have this guy on the phone. He thinks I'm looking for something. Do you want to listen to the rest of the call? I was fascinated by this call. She said, I'm sorry, I'm not able to find that PIN for you. And he says, oh, no worries, continue to look. She goes, you know what, I think it's in my car. And he goes, you know what, take your time. Why don't you run to your car, grab your wallet, and that way you can, I mean, he was the perfect frost banker, non-frost banker, fraud frost banker. I don't even know how you say that, right? But again, I listened to that call and I was flabbergasted at how kind and nice and lovely he was. And, you know, she just kept egging him on. So it was quite humorous at the same time, but that's what they're doing now. And so it's very easy. And here's what the whole purpose of that, you guys, with any scam or with a lot of things that happen, like you'll notice you're getting more and more things on your phone, text messages like, we're unable to deliver your package. Click here. Well, you're going, after you do it, you go, I don't even have a package. I wasn't expecting a package, right? But it's the catching you off guard. So when Frost calls you, or what appears to be Frost going, they're about to spend $3,000 at Nebraska Furniture Mart. It's the quickness of it that your brain goes, oh my gosh, no, I didn't do that. And they said, well, we're going to stop it. What's that PIN? And their mind is totally on the fact that they're not lose $3,000. It's the surprise element is what's catching everybody, because it's catching you off guard. It's that complete surprise, right? So that's what I just kind of wanted to tell you when I was saying the new scams. We're having so much of that. And of course, just the typical old scams that targeted our seniors, the healthcare, Medicare fraud. And people always wonder, they go, I don't even understand how that works. Well, getting healthcare or Medicare, and you, let's say you are sick, and there are people that do it, they actually make fake IDs and use these cards or their IDs and go in and get healthcare or charge Medicare for things that didn't happen. And so that actually is a thing. Counterfeit prescription drugs, we all know that's big, whether or not it's with our seniors or with anybody. It could be any of us sitting in this room that could be a target for getting counterfeit or asking you to get drugs for them to sell on the street. And, you know, that's become a big thing. So all of these things, the grandparent scam, that's super old. Remember when we all first started talking, and that was one of the big things. So let me tell you why I know about spoof card. In this law enforcement seminar I was in, the police officer, what happened was a mother got a phone call. She was at work, and it appeared to be her daughter calling. And she answers and she says, hey, babe, what's going on? And it was a man's voice. And he said, I've got your daughter, Mallory, and I've got her phone, as you can see. And if you will Zelle me $5,000 right now, she will go unharmed, and I will give her phone back. Obviously, the mother does it, right? So mother Zells the money, waits about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and she calls, and the daughter answers the phone, and she goes, what's that, Mom? She goes, honey, are you all right? She goes, I'm at school, Mom. I really can't talk. He found her number, programmed it, and it made it look like, that's how I even found out about this. And so again, because we're all familiar and used to caller ID, do not. And now with all the AI, artificial intelligence, and all these, they made a Randy Travis record using AI of another guy's voice to make it sound like Randy Travis. That's where we are. And it's so darn scary. So I had another banker ask me, he goes, what are you guys doing when you're going to call back? Like, let's say you get a wire, right? Somebody's called in and they've got an emergency, and you do it by phone, which is not our normal, right? We do not normally do that, but let's say something happens. Well, we always call them back on the number on file to say, hey, were you wanting to do? He goes, what are y'all doing with AI? And I go, I don't understand what you're even talking about. So what in my mind is he saying, if I call, let's say I pull up Lynn Scott's information here at Frost Bank. Oh, here, I'll do that and give y'all her balance. Hold on. No, I'm kidding. I don't have her information. Anyway, but let's say I pull up Lynn Scott's. Are they saying that a computer knows that she sent this wire and is going to answer her phone and confirm it? So I was lost in that translation, but you guys, I don't know. Maybe that's where we're going. So I just thought I would point the phone calls and why you're a lot of people and not just seniors, but you can imagine why seniors would be really quick to see that it's Frost Bank calling and thinking, now I'm going to tell on one of my own persons that used to work right beside me at Frost Bank. So the other day I get a notification, she fell for a scam, came to the bank. Now, mind you, she lives like over an hour away, came to the bank and got a cashier's check for $25,000. She was on her way to UPS it, and thank goodness, thought better of it and came back to the bank and said, you know, I was going to send this. And the more I thought about it, y'all, she worked in security here at the bank. So that's, I'm telling you, it's one of those things that just happens to everybody. It's nobody is immune. Nobody. And even our parents aren't immune. Our children. And that's one of the things we think the kids are tech savvy, right? They're absolutely not really. They're tech users. It doesn't mean they absolutely know how to program a computer or how to, but they are constantly, they're tech users. So our children are not familiar with a lot of these scams. They don't know. So like the college, you know, hey, your college is going to be canceled because you didn't pay your last college bill. Well, I thought mom took care of that. Well, you can take care of it right now if you'll give me this information. And again, these are college students that fall for this. So, you know, we want to talk about the seniors, if you will, but it's all of us, and we all fall for it. And fraud does not care if you're female, if you're male. It doesn't matter what culture you come from, what your background is, or your intelligence level. So many people that I talk to and deal with are highly educated folks, but it's that element of surprise that catches them, that they go, oh, my PIN, it's 4-5. And they just, it's the element of surprise. And then after they do it, they realize it. But then it's a little bit late because the money's kind of gone out. So I'm going to skip a couple of these. Oops, these are Medicare. Obviously, you don't want to fall for any of these. And telemarketing scams, I do want to talk about that. Only because here's what's happening quite a bit. You're getting those pop-ups on your computers now, right? And it's Microsoft, supposedly, or it's McAfee, or it's whatever. So what's happening is they're getting these pop-ups that says, you better click now, your virus protection is about to expire. And it's actually, there are legitimate ones, we all know. These are not legitimate ones. So they're clicking on those. It's now contaminating their computers. And now they're seeing everything. And that's how they're able to talk to these folks, because they can see everything that's going on inside their computer. I had a little gentleman, this was heartbreaking. He came in to get a $10,000 cashier's check. And so we said, what do you need this for? And he says, well, I need to be buying some stuff. And we said, well, this is unlike you. Who are you making this out to? And he didn't want it made payable to anybody. Well, a cashier's check has to be made payable to someone. So he was going to come back. Well, he goes to a different office. And so finally they said, okay, well, why didn't you go back to the other office? And so I called him and I said, so Mr. Wilson, tell me what's going on. As well, I'm kind of embarrassed, but I was on my computer yesterday, and when I went to get back on, it was locked up. And he told me the only way he would unlock it is if I sent him $10,000. And I said, Mr. Wilson, what all do you use your computer for? And he goes, well, mainly just to kind of do FaceTime with the grandkids, or, you know. And I said, do you have a lot of important stuff on there? And he goes, oh, no, not really. And I said, well, then why do you care? Why don't you just take that 10,000? You can buy 5 brand new computers, right? And throw the old one in the trash. And he goes, oh, I do need a new computer. And I said, So again, but their mind at that moment is, oh my gosh, it's the element of surprise. My computer's locked. I've got to have this back. But that ransomware for that is different than a ransomware for a large company or a school district or a water department. But he didn't know, right? And he was embarrassed. He didn't even want to tell us the bank what he was using the funds for or the whole purpose. And so he was lovely. He said, you're absolutely right. And obviously didn't send the funds. But what if he didn't tell us? And he was like the other gentleman, says, fine, if you won't give me my money, I'll just close my account. You never know which way it's going to go. But telemarketing scams, and I'm also going to point out one other thing to you guys, especially if you are a parent, or I'm so sorry, a child of an elder parent, or you yourself. Please be very careful when you are clicking, you're searching, and you click in Google. And I'm going to tell you why I'm telling you this. It happened to us at Frost Bank. We have a commercial platform. It's called Frost Connect. All banks have a commercial platform, whatever it's called, but it's called Frost Connect. And they Googled Frost Connect and they clicked on the first thing there. It says Frost Connect, but they were emulating our website. So what is happening to businesses, to individuals, me and you? I mean, it can happen. If I'm looking and I'm going to go, ooh, I'm going to buy something at Macy's, and I Google Macy's and I hit the first thing at Macy's, it's going to look like Macy's, but it may not be Macy's. Or they may have embedded something in that URL that they can now also see your keystrokes. Even though Macy's is getting it, they can obviously see it as well. So it's always best to go at the top of your bar and type in Macy's.com, frostbank.com. Then you're getting a secured website and you're for sure going there. Clicking on pop-ups in any kind of email you guys get, and it says your security is about to run out, and click here, we can help you. Or, oops, there's a problem with your Microsoft Windows, call us at this number, we can help you. And yeah, they do. They help you clear out your bank account pretty quickly. And so we're seeing a lot of that. And so if I could send you all of the files that I get every day on that kind of stuff, you would go, oh my gosh, they thought they had to send 20,000 to Microsoft. So, and that's what they're doing. So it's very interesting. So pay attention. Your law enforcement, we've all heard of this where they're calling on the phone saying you want to support your law enforcement, or the retirement for law enforcement. And you find out later it was a fraud call, but we've all given them our credit card information at that point, saying, yes, please charge me $25. I definitely want to donate. Well, now, not only have you donated to some weird something, they have your credit card information. And same thing when you're clicking on Google and you think it's a legitimate site. And the only reason I'm telling y'all it's not, it happened to us. And on that particular day, I think my screen just went, on that particular day, what could have been lost by our commercial customers was 3.4 million before we were made aware that that was out there. And if any of you have tried to call Google and say you need to take that down, let me know how that worked out for you. Because getting a hold of somebody at Google and saying there's something out there that's not ours, it took a long time. We actually had to pull it down for a couple of hours. Our whole Frost Connect system, just because, again, 3.4 million in one day, before we even knew about it, that they were clicking on that search in Google. So don't be clicking on that stuff. It's okay to use Google, but that clicking in there, you got to be really careful because you don't know technically where it's taking you, or if they're just emulating another site or another bank. And now you're putting, let's say you wanted to open a checking account and you thought you were going to ABC Bank. Now they have your social, your date of birth, your name, and they weren't a bank to begin with at all. So just kind of be very careful with all of these people that are calling you. Hang up the phone and say, hey, let me do this. Let me call you right back. I'm kind of busy right now, or I need to finish up what I'm doing and I'll call you right back. And then call the number that you know is their number, whether it's the local police officers association that you think you're donating to or whatever. But and be very careful about those when you're shopping or going on and you're looking at Facebook, because everybody likes to do that, especially, that's how we stay in touch, right? Especially if you're elder, you stay in touch that way. Be very careful with those ads that are in Facebook, because you may or may not know if those are legitimate companies. And so now you've bought from them, again, giving out your credit card information, the expiration, the code, the security code, and they may or not even be legitimate companies. They're just out there on Facebook advertising. Work at home scams, those are very, very old. Do they still exist? You bet they do. Are there still those ones that say, hey, we need your help. Will you be a secret shopper for us? We've sent you this check and, just deposit it, go send some money or buy me all these gift cards, come back and read them off to me and give me the codes. That still goes on. You want to believe it doesn't, right? Because it's so old. It still goes on today. The home repairs, if somebody comes to you and says, this needs to be done, or we can spray paint your driveway or spray wash your driveway. Have you noticed how dirty it is or whatever? Don't make quick decisions. Say, thank you for that information. Do you have a card? And let me call you back. I need to verify this with my daughter or my son or my husband or whatever the case is. If you can talk to anybody to say, please don't make those hasty off the, or ma'am, did you realize that 3 of your shingles are just hanging there? I don't want water to get in your house. And they're going, oh, I didn't notice there was 3 shingles. Well, I can fix those for you right now. Avoid doing the right now things or taking those calls right now. Even if it says Frost Bank, go, you know what? Thank you so much. I'll call you right back. I'm going to do some quick checking. And then call them back at the number is really Frost Bank and say, somebody just called me and I wanted to see, was somebody trying to use my card? But don't let them, the art of surprise, take you down. So here's what you've got to try to, let's see, here we go. So to protect your loved ones, if you can, now remember, these are still people with normal cognitive skills, most of them, right? So just because they get caught up in a bad situation, you've got to handle it so gingerly. I mean, you can't just walk in and go, I want to see what's going on in your bank account, But if you can convince them, in the event something weird should happen to you, or let's say you get stuck or stranded somewhere, I need to be able to look at your account, or I need to be able to pay your bills, or whatever. If they can let you at least look at their accounts but you notice real weird stuff going on, lots of big withdrawals or stuff like that. If you can talk to them and protect them in any way, that's awesome. Or you notice suddenly they're hanging around with this one person they just met, but now they're the bestest of friends. Maybe vet those folks and say, how do you know, mom? Or, how did you even become friends, and maybe you can help and vet those people and make sure that they're in for the right reasons. But watch for other signs, especially if you have a caregiver. Caregivers used to be, and I'm sure it's still the same, we just don't get as much, but they try to alienate these folks from their families. They try to answer the phone. Oh, she's asleep right now. They make excuses and you are never able to quite talk to mom and dad or Aunt Sue or whatever. So those are things to kind of look for. If you see a lot of things piling up in their home of sweepstakes and stuff like that, probably they've talked to somebody and now they're getting tons, or they've sent money at one time and now they're getting over and over. So you can kind of look for signs to see if maybe they're being subjected to some fraud. But things you can do is, of course, be aware. But you have to kind of be present sometimes in your loved ones' lives and kind of be aware of what's going on. Are you noticing any changes? Are you noticing any changes in their personality? They want to get off the phone quicker. They really don't want to talk as much. Those kinds of things. So just kind of be on the lookout for those red flags, if you want to call them. Here's some resources. I'm going to go back up. That you can help, and one of them is creditreport.com. Looking at those credit reports annually, you are allowed to get a free credit report every year. What I recommend is not do all 3 of them at once. Do TransUnion the first quarter of the year, maybe do Equifax's second quarter of the year, and then do the other one the last quarter. Most of them report the same thing, but if there's fraud going on or loans or anything like that, then you have a whole year of pictures rather than waiting a whole nother year. So it's nice that you can get a free one per credit bureau, but maybe space them out so you're seeing them over the whole year. On Guard Online, that's tips. The best one obviously is ftc.gov, and they have videos out there as well. So, but they have every scam imaginable. And if you have someone you can say, here, read this. Does this sound like something? Because it literally will sound just like, did they have an unexplained medical bill suddenly come up? They want you to help them with it. It has all of those things. So FTC is one of the best. You know, the do not call list anymore. Have y'all found that to even be effective? It's not. And same thing with your text. You know, people are texting constantly this crazy stuff. And, you know, you can hit delete and report fraud, but, you know, I don't know where that goes. Does somebody just say, okay, well, we're not going to let them send any more of those? Or, you know, where does that go in the big brand world? With that, I thank you for your attention. If y'all have other stories, I really wish you would share because like I said, it's always so much better. And like the stories I tell y'all are true stories. They're live stories. They're true stories. The one I got today, it was believing it was frostbank.com calling him, and he gave out his PIN. So they're true stories. It's not just things that can happen. It did happen. So if anybody else has any, it would be lovely for you to share.
Thank you, Jami. We appreciate you. I'm sure everybody has some stories to share. I wanted to highlight a couple of things that were in the chat. Zach shared that anybody in the world can go to Skype and buy an 817 number and make the caller ID whatever they want it to be. And then the question was, is it spoof card or spoof call?
It's spoof card, C-A-R-D. But there's a bunch of them. There's a lot of those apps out there.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't have to use just that one. There's several out there, and I don't know all of them. You can Google and say what, you know, but there's a bunch. Spoof card just have to do what that policeman told me about. There's a fee to use it. So like I don't pay a fee, I don't use it. I just show it so everybody understands how easy it is that I could be calling you and saying, hey, Dana, and I have a deep Zach voice on the phone.
Gotcha. Yeah, awesome. And then Andrea Earl from AARP mentioned that they're hoping to get some regulation, state legislation on the cryptocurrency ATMs, which I know Nathan was actually just saying yesterday we needed to get some legislation for Bitcoin ATMs. So I'm kind of curious if Andrea or if Nathan, if one of you guys wants to share what you were considering, and then the other one can respond what it's going to look like.
Yeah, I would like to know about that.
Yeah. So Andrea.
Can y'all hear me? You can't
hear
me?
We can hear you, Nathan. Thank you.
Okay. Hey, this is Nathan Martin with the District Attorney's Office here in Tarrant County. Jami, so nice to hear your presentation. Great job. I shared a link. There was actually a search and seizure warrant that was carried out, I think, down in McLennan County, down near Waco, where the senior citizen had put all her money into this Bitcoin ATM machine. And they actually went and got the cash out of that ATM machine. And they almost did it the right way if they would have just held it for a hearing. So the Bitcoin ATM operator would have had some due process to have a hearing on where that money should or shouldn't go. But they're kind of old school down there. So they just got the money out and gave it back to the victim and said, it'll be a cold day in hell before anybody else gets this money back. Well, they didn't go through all the legal process, but I am looking currently for an active case where we could try to do a search and seizure warrant from one of these Bitcoin ATMs and then have the police hold the money, have the proper due process hearing, and hopefully a judge would agree with us to return that money back to the senior citizen, or for that matter, anybody that got caught up in the scam, whether they're a senior or not. I don't really know, and I know this was Dana, I talked about this yesterday, I don't know if we need new legislation for that. I think we may already have the mechanical pieces. We just have to do it the right way. And I don't know that anybody's done it the right way just yet, but this fraud is growing in popularity and frequency. So I'm looking for an example.
Great.